What's up, y'all? Another day, another theater pick coming your way. As a co-production with the Geffen Playhouse, Steppenwolf presents Noises Off by Michael Frayn and directed by Tony Award-winning ensemble member Anna D. Shapiro. It's about a theater ensemble doing its best to get through, I'ma just say it, a disaster of a play. And from lost props to line flubs, I dare you not to laugh. Me personally, I love a good meta comedy. Noises Off runs September 12th through October 27th. You can buy tickets starting at just $20 at steppenwolf.org. If you need another show to put on your calendar, I got you. Make sure you catch the full Monty at Paramount Theater in Aurora from August 21st through October 6th. Winner of 9 Tony Awards, the musical is about laid-off steelworkers trying to survive their economic troubles with a plan that takes them way out of their comfort zone. Get your tickets today at ParamountAurora.com or call the box office at 630-896-6666. But if you buy online, you can get $5 off per ticket, up to 4 tickets with promo code CityCast, all one word. Again, that's ParamountAurora.com and use the promo code CityCast. Today on CityCast Chicago. Every week in the summer, Chicago is packed with tourists, family and friends from out of town, suburbanites in for whatever mega festival is taking over. And now the DNC expects over 50,000 visitors from across the country next week. So if you know somebody coming in town for the DNC or just coming in general, we put together a little guide so that they know how to get around, what to do, and of course, what not to do. Helping me break it all down is producer extraordinaire Michelle Navarro. It's Thursday, August 15th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. Morning, Michelle. How you feeling?
Good morning, Jacoby. I'm good. How are you doing?
I ain't out here complaining. Putting together a guide for visitors is both a fun, somewhat overwhelming experience because, like, what do you want to do? What do you want to see? How much time do you have? I feel sometimes overwhelmed serving as a guide to my friends and family, to my colleagues when they come into town. What about you? Do you like to be the guide for your visitors when they stop by Chicago?
I definitely do. I love when friends from out of town come visit me. I mean, this summer alone, I've had like 2 friends come in, stay with me for like a week at a time, and I'll send them like the itinerary, and I'll just, I think it's important to kind of know your audience, right? Like know what your friends into. Are they the museum type? Are they the person that they're okay with doing things on their own? Or do you have that friend that kind of wants to stick by your side the whole time? And so figuring out like what things they enjoy, it just feels really good when like you picked out a really good itinerary and you see them actually enjoy themselves. So I do love just running around the city and kind of play pretend like as if I'm a tourist too. As Chicagoans, like we don't give ourselves enough time to do that sometimes. So having an excuse to do that is really fun. What about you? Do you like being like a guide for your visitors?
I do and don't. I do love providing like tips. Like if I have friends coming in to visit, I like when they have their own itinerary, when they have their own things that they want to hit, and they come to me with like 3 or 4 things and are like, what should I do? And luckily for like this particular guy, we kind of anchored ourselves a little bit. We know that the Democratic National Convention is going to take up a lot of space around the United Center. We know it's going to take up a lot of space around the McCormick Place. And so this guy will largely focus on some things that are around there. We'll break out. But before we even get into where people need to go eat, what things people need to go see, let's just talk about what it means to navigate around this city. You and I do not drive. We ain't got cars. We are passenger pimps for the most part.
Precisely.
So when you have people coming into town, they can't rely on us to take them around. How are you laying that out for your friends? What apps do they need to download on their phone to get around?
No, definitely. Like that's super important. Anytime you go into a new place, you have to figure out first thing, how am I getting around? And so I'm always go to Google Maps girl. Like transit is always great on there. It's constantly updating if you're going to miss a train, if a train's coming soon, if there's a bus close by. Sid actually pointed us to the transit app, which I've definitely heard about it before, which just again gets kind of to all the train stations, all the bus lines that you kind of need to be aware of. And so I think those are really important to do. But also, of course, we have the Ventra app, which is, we use Ventra for the CTA.
For Metra, for Pace.
Exactly. Yeah. So the other two modes of transportation. And I just love the fact that we can use contactless pay. And so I think for a lot of visitors, like, they'll get stuck on the vending machines out O'Hare, out of Midway. You want to go straight to them like vending machines, and there could be lines, people trying to figure out what to get.
Bro, my dumb ass was using them vending machines for at least a few months before I even caught on that you could just use Apple Pay. You could, like you said, you could go cashless. Bro, I was standing at those vending machines, and I'm talking, it don't take cash, it don't give a refund, the debit card reader wasn't working, and somebody just like, Brody, what is you doing? Like,
I mean, if you know you're going to be on the CTA or on Metra or on Pace consecutively multiple times a day, getting a 3-day or a 7-day pass is probably going to be a better bang for your buck. But again, if you don't think you're going to take it every day, I just say, tap to pay, either using like a contactless card, using your phone, just to like that to me is the easiest. Aside from that kind of public transportation, I mean, the perks of being in a big city is that we have bikes and we have scooters as well.
Bro, you already know I'm on the two-wheel gang. I'm a card-carrying member of the Two-Wheel Transportation Society in Chicago. If there is a scooter close by me, I'm hopping on that boy. If there's a divvy close by me, I'm hopping on that boy. At this point, though, I'm a little bouge. I haven't rode a non-electric divvy in years, dog. You don't even really have to download the extra apps all the time. Like if you got Uber and Lyft already on your phone, they have the two-wheel tab, and you can go there and you can find any scooters or any bikes that are nearby, wherever you're staying, wherever you, if you're near the McCormick or if you're near the United Center, you can find what available bikes or scooters are right next to you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm big on divvy bikes. I'm not big on scooters. They kind of scare me. I feel like I need to get on one though and like get over that fear as well. It's because I just see people go so fast on them. But I mean,
Yes.
all power to you. I know so many people that really love the scooters, and they're everywhere. Like you are bound, no matter what neighborhood you're in, you're probably going to be bound to run into at least a couple. And so that's great. But aside from bikes and scooters, using the water taxi is incredibly fun. I just got on it not that long ago when my friend was visiting. The closest stop is in Pingtom Park, which is super close, in Chinatown. It's close to the McCormick place. And if you hop on there, you can get off at West Loop or at Michigan. And they're constantly going through like it's like almost every 15 to 20 minutes you'll be able to catch a boat between their hours. And so that's a super fun way and a cheap way to get on a boat, first of all. And second of all, it's just an easy way to kind of get around the river, which if you're in Chicago visiting the river, you definitely want to spend some time on there or around there because it's just so beautiful.
Most of this is for people who are not using a car. Like if you plan on using the CTA, we'll drop a link in our show notes to our unwritten rules of riding CTA, right? Mind your business. Don't take up too many seats next to you, those kind of things. We'll drop a link in there. But if you are driving, one app you definitely need is the Chicago parking app. We just did an episode on why parking is so difficult in this city. But if you are trying to park mostly on public streets, non-residential streets, you will likely run into the parking app. So please download that. Make sure you're reading the signs around the neighborhood, like when you can and can't park. And if you are driving on the expressways, just plan a little bit of extra time. The amount of additional security that'll be around the McCormick Place, be around the United Center, means that you're likely going to be moving even slower if you're in a car. And so those are just some tips on traveling, getting around the city, navigating the traffic near the United Center. But Michelle, I know you like me, G. When you are going somewhere to visit or you got people in, like I just got back from Houston, our entire itinerary was centered around where we were eating. Any additional activity we did, it had to be in close proximity to some food. Food had to be available there. And so I know for a lot of people when they come to Chicago, they're thinking to themselves, all right, there's museums, there's the lakefront, there are all of these neighborhoods I can visit, but I'm trying to eat. And so when we're thinking of places that aren't too far, where are some places near the United Center you think people should check out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely close to the United Center, you have some good options. The Little Italy neighborhood is a good spot because you can get your Al's Italian beef, and right across the street, you can get you some Mario's Italian ice. You can get yourself a little Italian beef sandwich, which is like, to me, is one of my favorite sandwiches in Chicago. A lot of places do it really well, but just the fact that Mario's is just across the street, like you're just setting yourself up for like a little sweet treat afterwards. So that's a spot that I really like close to the United Center. If you're trying to look for a dog or a Polish, there's Fatso's Last Stand, Jim's Original, which we also recently talked about on one of our episodes when we were talking about the Chicago style hot dog, which, of
Hmm.
course, if you're in Chicago, why not? You should definitely try it out. See if you're into it. We definitely are. Other spots that are kind of close to the United Center that I think are kind of like, man, if I have a friend in town and I really want them to have something, you have to have tacos in Chicago. Chicago is known to have, some of the best Mexican cuisine in the country. One of my favorite spots to get tacos is Carniceria Maribel. It is a small, like, butcher convenience store. The steak tacos are so good. It's on the west side, easy to get to.
I'm glad you gave people some largely low cost, some cheaper options. Because you know me, I'm probably going to give some suggestions that's going to run the bill up just a little bit. A place I stopped by over this weekend over in West Town, and that was Bordel in Brazzero. It's a cocktail lounge, but they also do burlesque. And it was the first time I'd ever been there. And it was a great time. And then I went right over to Brazzero after, which is like a wood fire, Latin American inspired steak restaurant, which was so good.
So good.
Close to United Center, if you're looking for like a good burger, the Loyalists. I had their burger for the first time. You can't go wrong with their steak frites either. Both was good. Bottom Lounge, a good place to get a drink. Usually have live music. But if you're looking for something maybe a little more late night, maybe you might catch, some of the Bears players stopping by, some of the Bulls players stopping by. A place like Gino and Marty's over in the West Loop is a place that I really love to stop by and grab a few drinks. They pour a little extra, like a little heavier, especially if you nice to the bartender, so it makes for a good night. But you also made me think about tacos. And while my place is probably a 20-minute Uber, 20-minute drive from the United Center, Asian Cuisine Express is still a great place to go to get the taco holla. I believe they got like a Monday deal on the tacos over at Asian Cuisine Express. And so we got a range of places that are pretty close by. What about over by the McCormick place? Like similar to the United Center, there's a lot of restaurants and things close by, but there are also, if you go about 15, 20 minutes outside, you could be in 3, 4 different neighborhoods, especially near the McCormick place.
Yeah. The neighborhood that I think I would recommend people to check out close to McCormick Place would definitely be Chinatown. It's like you're already there. Why not stop by? And my pick for Chinatown, there's so many good places there, but one that I definitely would say like you have to go is the QXY dumplings, which is kind of like if you look up any best dumpling list in the city, like you will see QXY on there. Everything there is good. They have these Wagyu dumplings that are just so good. There might be a little line there. They've been popular recently, but I think it's definitely a place that, if you want to just go do takeout, if you want to eat there, the space is very, very pretty as well. Close again to Pington Park. So, you could do a little water taxi before or after that. But yeah, that's my pick. What about you?
Hey, I'm with you. Near McCormick Place, 2 neighborhoods you probably got to check out. Either Bronzeville, you are right there, or like you said, Chinatown, right outside of the McCormick Place, a little bit of a walk. And for me in Chinatown, I got to say Chi Cafe. This is a place that has my heart. It's open pretty late. And so I typically am in there eating somewhere around like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Zach Fox was in town a couple of weeks ago, and that's a place he stopped by. I
Oh,
immediately
wow.
recognized, and it's located inside of Chinatown Square Plaza. And so just by way of going to the restaurant, you are going to pass by gift shops and bakeries and smoothie shops and boba tea places. And so that's one of the reasons I love going to Chinatown Square Plaza. But If you are in like South Loop looking for a drink, looking for some music, I would pop over to Reggie's. They got a rooftop that you can enjoy as well, got a patio. But if you're looking for something like before you go to the McCormick place, like a brunch or breakfast, Cleo's, absolute staple on the South Side. So that probably be a place that I would tell people if you are staying close by, walking, biking, quick little ride share distance, those are some places near McCormick Place.
So, of course, there's going to be politicians roaming around the streets of Chicago. And so there's, of course, places that they're going to want to check out, meaning there's probably going to be a little bit more popular. So,
a little bit of a line, a little
bit of a
Secret Service, a
line.
little security on deck.
Exactly. So maybe you might want to avoid these for the upcoming week. Jacoby, what's one that you think people may avoid, and what is a kind of like a substitute for that?
For sure. I want to give a huge shout out to everyone who's put together these lists of, like Michelle said, these popular establishments that politicians have to stop by when they come to Chicago. And some places on that list that probably stick out to places: Manny's over in South Loop near West Side, Valois and Hyde Park, the breakfast spot constantly comes up because that was Obama's apparently favorite place, which I still got a lot of doubt around. There's Lou Mitchell's, there's Brown Sugar Bakery. I know Kamala Harris has stopped there a few times on her recent visits, but I'm gonna start with Manny's. Now, this is a place every mayoral candidate, every aldermanic candidate, if a president or someone is in town visiting, they usually go to Manny's, pull up and get a sandwich. Me, especially since McCormick Place is not too far from Hyde Park, I like Medici's on 57th. That's the place I like to go to get a quick sandwich. They have a patio. The building size is very deceptive. You be standing outside and you think that it's not that big, but once you go inside, you realize how much space is actually inside of Medici. So that's a place that I really enjoy, and I do think is probably likely to have a smaller line than what you may see at like Manny's, for example. Like, even if you stand near the McCormick United Center, you got to go 45 minutes outside of those neighborhoods to get it. What's a place for you that's like worth the trip? Like MacArthur's in Austin. I think that's like a place that deserves to be on these lists and is worth taking your ass all the way to the far west side. For me, I got home at a Hoagie in Morgan Park and Honey Bear Cafe in Rogers Park as well.
And another spot is Red Hot Ranch in Bucktown. This is going to be one of the best burgers you have in Chicago for like your buck, because it's like under $10. You can get your burger and your fries. And it is just such a good burger. It's like in a little grease trap kind of spot. There isn't really long lines that you should worry about because they're just like pumping them burgers out. But get the Red Hot Ranch burger and like, you're going to love it. Super cheap, super good. And again, it's just one of those spots that just be on all the kind of like the best burger list in Chicago. Just the spots that you have to try.
So maybe you out here trying to live a greener life. Maybe you want to reduce the amount of food waste heading to Chicago's landfills and you're thinking about composting. If so, you got to try Waste Not. Here's how it works. Waste Not gives you a 5-gallon bucket with an airtight lid. That's where you're going to toss your food scraps, cooked or raw, paper products like napkins and coffee filters, and anything else that's certified compostable. Then the Waste Not team comes and collects your full bucket in electric service vehicles, might I add, and they leave you a clean, empty one. This happens every week or every other week, depending on your needs. Plus, for my gardeners out there, y'all gonna be able to get back some of the finished compost you helped create without ever having to deal with all the gross parts of the process. So give Waste Not a try and check out wastenotcompost.com. CityCast Chicago listeners can test the service with a free month by using promo code CityCastCompost. All right, so we talked plenty of food in this conversation. What are just a few activities that you suggest to your friends and family when they come into town? Ways to explore the city, even if you're on a bit of a time crunch, but you want to see a few things.
Yeah, so I think a super simple idea to have your guests kind of entertain and learn about the city is going on a tour. We're big fans here at the show for the river architecture boat tour. It's a gorgeous tour that just takes you along the river. Again, if you don't plan on getting on a boat on the river, walk along the river walk. But again, there's so many other tours besides like the river tour. Tours with Mike. We've had Mike McMains on the show. He runs one person tour company. And currently, Mike has a tour that highlights presidential history from political conventions like the RNC in 1860, where they nominated Abraham Lincoln for president, the contentious DNC of 1968, which we have been talking a lot about recently, and of course, Obama's 2008 election night rally. Another great place you can find tours is Chicago Mahogany, which Chicago historian Dilla, like if you're looking to get out of the city center, which I feel like Chicagoans, we're always going to tell you to do that. Like, don't just stay in the loop. Don't just stay in downtown. Like, you're really going to miss out on so much of the city's cultural background and history. And so Chicago Mahogany takes visitors to historic neighborhoods like Bronzeville, Inglewood, Pullman, Bridgeport, and Stockyard, and they also have a Pilsen and Little Village tour. So these tours are just really good for, getting out of the city center and really learning, kind of like the backbone of our city, how our city came to be, in places that historically don't get as much attention, especially for tourists who are just kind of coming and checking the city out.
That's a great point. One tour that I really encourage people to take is the youth tours in North Lawndale, brought to you by My Block, My Hood, My City. Like, this is an opportunity to take a tour from a young person who lives in these neighborhoods, who grew up in these neighborhoods, and you can see the area, the community through their eyes. Often, like I said earlier, when we start to see people stereotype in Chicago, they're often stereotyping Black Chicago, brown Chicago, and Black and brown young people across the city. And just to see them putting these tours together and taking people out and providing the history is really cool to see. And you also see that in the Chicago Strolls app, where you have students from different high schools in the city doing audio tours of their neighborhood. I took one down on the South Side with students from Morgan Park and Whitney Young and Kenwood Academy, and just the opportunity to learn about Chicago history through the voice of these young people. It's a very memorable activity in Chicago that I don't think often makes it to the top of these lists. And so doing a self-guided or even a guided tour in the city is always very high up on our list. Another thing I wanted to encourage people to do while they're here is we're not really in theater season. A lot of fall productions are going to be coming around late August, early to mid September. But a lot of the shows that are playing in the city right now are centered around a loop. It makes me think of like Back to the Future down at the Cadillac Palace, which is a great show. But if you're looking to see some theater, but get out into one of the neighborhoods, I would suggest the Black Ensemble Theater in Uptown. Next week, they're going to have the Black Playwrights Festival with tributes to Herb Kent, Denise Williams, Bobby Womack, and that's all taking place August 21st through August 24th. And so that's one I would definitely put on the list, where if you're trying to avoid some of those loop theater lines, maybe get up to Uptown Ravenswood area to see a show up there.
So I think a spot that would be, I haven't been personally, but I made it a kind of like a plan that next time someone comes into town, I'm going to take them there, is Buddy Guy's Legend, which is in Printers Row, and it's a classic blues club. I mean, if you don't know who Buddy Guy is, he is the blues legend.
He just retired last week, I think.
Yeah, he just retired. I mean, he's been kind of on like his farewell tour this past year. And so this is a spot that Wednesday through Sunday, they will have, live music. I heard the cocktails are great. And so this is something that I definitely want to do next time. Another thing is I do love seeing comedy shows. I personally am also making it kind of like a thing to do it. I've only seen kind of like random open mic comedy shows in my neighborhood, which isn't always like the worst idea in the world. Even when people are bad, it's kind of funny. So I think like in whatever neighborhood your visitors are staying in, try to look around to see local bars that kind of have these events, because it could be a real treat to kind of just walk in there and catch someone. And you'll be surprised. Some people are really good. But of course, Zanny's Comedy Nightclub in Old Town. If you want to make sure you're going to see someone somewhat funny, going to an actual comedy nightclub is probably going to be your best bet. And so Zanny's in Old Town is known to, have really good acts all year round. And so that's a place that I would definitely take people as well.
Mm-hmm. And then one last thing, download the Shybrations app. Like if you want another way to get out into the neighborhoods, like meet some actual Chicagoans or even get up and do some performance yourself. Our open mic community is thriving right now. I'm thinking of a place like Urban Lux Cafe down the South Shore. They have jam sessions for musicians and instrumentalists. They have open mics for poetry, for comedy, for storytelling. And so that, downloading that app to see, okay, maybe I don't want to just go to Google and say, what comedy shows are playing in Chicago tonight or what theater is playing. If you just want to go out and see just some local performers, then definitely tap into the open mic scene as well. All right, so Michelle, we have talked getting around the city. We've talked places people got to eat, some great places to go see comedy, music, theater. But before we get out of here, I think it's important for us to just like vent on like our biggest pet peeves. Like what if to our friends and family who come to Chicago, like to like when we see tourists out in Chicago, like what would be the things we would tell them to avoid, like the unwritten rules that they should adhere to, pay attention to? For you, what's one of them?
I mean, this is just big city etiquette. Like, mind your business, which
Especially on
means,
CTA.
especially on the CTA, be mindful on sidewalks. If you're with a group of people, maybe it's a group of little tourists, like we know who tourists are because y'all don't like to move to the side of the sidewalk. It's just very common courtesy to just move to the side. Same thing on escalators when you're going up and down the CTA. Some people, some people don't have the time to lollygag. They're trying to get to work. They're still trying to get places. And so moving on the side of an escalator, it's just a great way for people to not hate you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just easy big city etiquette.
In line with what you were saying in terms of like just big city etiquette, one for me is like we do like to jaywalk correctly because we don't have as strong of a symbiosis between cars and pedestrians. Like there is no sort of, oh, we're all adhering to like the right of way rules. Here, they will hit you. Like cars will hit you. They will sort of just speed through you. Red lights are sort of a suggestion, but like jaywalk correctly. Don't lollygag across the middle of the street. Like kind of speed it up, get across the street. Make sure you're looking both ways for bike lanes. They are very inconsistent across the city. They are not all as easily identifiable. So those feel like just common big city things, but like some very specific Chicago things. One, I would avoid crime capitalism, right? I would avoid voyeurism in neighborhoods. And what I mean by that is like, I'm not a big fan, and I get, we just talked about tours of the city. I'm not a big fan of like these so-called like gangster tours, these like mob boss crime tours. One, people hear me say this all the time, I think it's anti-black for Chicago to constantly being labeled as this crime-ridden city when we're thinking about like black youth. But when we think about like old and white gangsters, they're sort of memorialized in this like really cool Johnny Dillinger, Hollywood, MGM Grand kind of way. So
Very
I prefer
glamorous.
I prefer people not to at least I encourage my visitors not to participate in crime tourism, whether it is both looking back a century in the past, or those people who like, oh, I need to go to O Block and take a picture with the King Von mural, or find a picture of Chief Keef and take a picture. Like it feels like you treating our neighborhoods like museums. And it's not to say every picture feels like that, but a lot of them do. And something I have consistently called people out for over the last decade is if when you start captioning your pictures, writing on social like, oh, I'm in Chirac or we in Iraq, or I'm just like, don't participate in that. Like there are some Chicagoans for whom I will never criticize them for using that language, because for them it becomes a strong representation of their daily circumstances. But for people who just put that label on the city and use it as if it is Windy City or Chi-Town or Chi City or any of these other damn nicknames people come up with, it's not the same. It is sort of the inside to the outside joke kind of things. Like, you're not in this joke, you're not involved in it. And so, yeah, I think that's probably my biggest pet peeve, though. People who I'm already annoyed by, people who come to Chicago with a very antiquated white supremacist view of the city that really puts Black and brown Chicagoans in the crosshair, and they have no context of what we lived through, what we moved through. And so people who just sort of belligerently participate in crime tourism really grinds my gears, People
know Chicago for Al Capone, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, you can have your niche interests, but if you come over here and start talking about it, you're giving yourself away. You know what I mean? Like, you're letting people know the way you see things, the way you see your city, the way you see Chicagoans.
And again, that's not to say you can't celebrate drill music. That's not saying you can't go visit Inglewood. That's not saying don't go stop by and patronage. But like, if you're going to go to Inglewood, then go there and visit the Peace Campus, right? Go there and stop by Inglewood Branded. Go there and maybe you might catch Dion out at the fridge. Like, you can go grab a pizza puff. Like, you can go to Kusanya Cafe. Like, Inglewood is not a museum for people from outside of Chicago who have a very limited view on what our city is. It's not a place for you to just go and spectate. Right. And so have some humanity when you're navigating Chicago's neighborhoods, for sure.
You're going to embarrass yourself. We're going to get secondhand embarrassment. No one wins.
No one wins. On a lighter note, while you are, maybe if you're downtown, for example, don't take the bracelet.
People are going to try to sell you bracelets. You don't got to accept it. They're going to be very nice. They're going to be very sweet.
Don't take the bracelet. Don't take the pamphlet. If somebody offers you something for free, they might tell you it's not free the minute you accept it. And so that's one.
Now, people you should maybe contribute to, like if you see a street performer and they're singing or dancing, whatever it may be, and you're enjoying it, don't just record them and walk away. Like, if you're going to get your little social content in, if you're going to, do a little video, like, you should tip them because you're enjoying whatever they're bringing to you.
You're going to see people playing live music on the corner. You'll see people out there singing R&B classes. You're going to see the Bucket Boys out there. You're going to see Andrew to the mic out there singing Whitney Houston. Like, you are likely to see some amazing street performers outside. And I love that rule, Michelle. Come on, man. They usually put their Venmo and their Cash up. Go ahead and throw something. One person I encourage you to not give money to, but also to maybe not stick around and listen to the full message. Like, if you are going to McCormick Place and you're coming through the South Loop, there's a chance you're going to run into Samuel Chambers, aka the State Street Preacher. My tip here is to not be offended. He is likely going to tell you that you are going to hell for a number of reasons. Maybe it's your sexual identity. Maybe you smell like weed. Maybe he just don't like you. Maybe you look a certain way. Keep it moving. Mind your business. I want to give another huge thank you to our producer, Michelle Navarro. It's always a good time, my friend.
Thanks, Jacoby.
Before we let you go, if you are new to CityCast Chicago, please bookmark our website, chicago.citycast.fm. There you're going to find our latest headlines, our neighborhood guides, and a packed events calendar. Also, while you're there, subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, where we're sending you all of these things and more to your inbox every morning, Monday through Friday, for the free. Of course, I can't let you go without some good news. The WNBA is officially back from Olympic break, and the Phoenix Mercury are in town tonight to take on the Chicago Sky at Wintrust Arena. Now, unfortunately for our visitors next week, the Sky will be on the road all next week. As always, we appreciate you for listening and reading. We're going to be back bright and early tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Peace. You should stay west of Austin, north of Edgewater, and south of Roseland. That's where you should go. When people ask, where should I stay in Chicago? Any of those follow those guidelines, you be good. You be good, my dog.